Hi everybody and welcome to Writers on Film. My name is John Bleasdale and I'm joined by Christine Birro, who is a writer and broadcaster and has her own podcast, Pop Culture Confidential. Thank you for joining me, Christine.
Thank you for having me. You're often on my show,
In
and I'm very appreciative
In
of that.
fact,
It's always great.
we can do crossovers, and somebody was telling me that I should give episodes to other people and they drop them in their feeds and vice versa.
Exactly.
They said it's a very good way of getting... That's a bit of inside podcaster baseball for you. We're on the Terrace des Journalistes.
Surrounded by other podcasters.
The podcasting is rich in this territory, and it's so funny how people are sort of, to some degree, lowering their voice when they're doing the podcast and then raising it when they're not doing the podcast. There's a guy who's quite close to us as well, doing the movie podcast, who has a very loud voice.
Well, he'll like join in our audio.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we'll pause and allow his opinion to just drift over.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about a few films that, one film we've both seen and a couple of films that either one of us has seen. But I wanted to start with the Romanian director Christian Mungiu's film, Fjord, which stars Sebastian Stan and Renate Rensve.
Yeah.
Oh, God damn it! I should
It's
never.
a hard one.
I can never pronounce names.
I have
so
a few
poor.
like that.
Yeah.
Andrei Zagintsev is one of those that I've been practicing.
There you
this
go.
Minotaur.
You see, there's the thing. You
Yeah.
practice.
Oh.
That's the thing. Whereas I just turn up and try
Okay,
to.
I'll call you in the middle of the night and go, Renate, and then you can't pronounce it.
Renzive. I've met her as well. I've interviewed her. She's very nice.
Yes.
She gave me a telling off.
She'd
but
be even nicer if you pronounced her name right.
This is true. She's very forgiving.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted.
No,
she told you off.
She told me off because I was using Otter AI just to transcribe the interview, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, well, "It's jobs. It saves me from having to transcribe it." She was having none of it.
None of it. Good
Yeah.
for Renate.
Yeah, exactly. What did you make of this new film?
This was a fascinating film, don't you think? I mean, I'm a big fan of Christian Mungiu, and the fact that he has made a film in Norway, basically it's about a Romanian-Norwegian family. Sebastian Stan who is Romanian actually. He was born in Romania. He plays the Romanian father, and they moved to a very small community in Norway because Renate Rensve's character is Norwegian. They have 5 children, and this community seems ideal and small and beautiful, but then they start to realize that the community... I don't know how much we want to spoil, but something has happened within the family with the children. One of the daughters ends up with some bruises, and this becomes a whole thing. The Barnavårdsnämnden, as it's called, the child services, actually takes their children away from them, and it becomes a huge ordeal, eventually even a international ordeal as the Romanians get into it. It's a fascinating study of both sort of progressive values as clashing with traditional values, and I don't think we've seen something quite like this before, and Christian Mungiu really answered incredibly interestingly at the press conference about how he's not trying to take sides, really. He's just trying to open up how far we have come from each other in the dialogue to understand, living together and understanding each values. And it was interesting. A lot of people, since I live in Sweden, a lot of my American colleagues, the first question was, is it really like this? Do they really take your children so quickly? And it is we go through, the convention laws, and it very much is so that if there is, you listen to what the children say and act according to law. So it is strict. But what did you think?
I wish I'd seen the film you just described. I saw a caricatured version of Norway, and one thing I was interested in, and it's something I haven't researched so maybe you can enlighten me on this. Was this based on a true case?
Yes, Christian Mungiu is a former journalist, and that's why all his films are what they are. And he had been to Norway several times and researched several cases, and it's a mixture of many different cases that have happened. And this one, there is one in particular, but it does, even the trial scenes, everything is based on a real...
Based on transcripts and things like
exactly.
that. Okay, well in that
and
case...
he's met with the different governmental, people in the child services. He's met with lawyers. He met with many people, he said, in order to make this film.
Because
you didn't buy the...
I found it very heavy-handed. I found it very, I thought it put its thumb on the scales at several important moments. There was a scene where they come to take the children away, and the Norwegian flag flaps in the window, which has no geographical sort of... We've seen where the flag is in the village, and it's not right outside the window, so it's very obviously being placed there to make a point of here comes the state.
I have one. Yeah, it does become a bit much. I buy that they take the children with supposedly temporary. If a child says that something has happened to them, they remove them from the house, from the family immediately in order to investigate. That I buy. But then very quickly, they're literally taking the children away from them forever. And every person in this Norwegian village is just so heartless in a way that I felt was a bit strong and heavy-handed.
Yeah.
But my issue that doesn't make it a masterpiece for me is I had some issues with the acting of the supporting characters, not Renate and not Sebastian Stanfield, but some of the support felt very Scandinavian television to me, and that brought me out of the film.
Yeah,
the children.
The children are terrible, and you're supposed to.
I'm sorry to say, I don't want to, child act, but
They don't listen to this. It's okay.
Right. The neighbors. I did the woman who plays who becomes their lawyer. That was harsh.
I mean that, but also even that was just like if this was in American. You would just go, this is such a TV movie. The friend who hadn't practiced law for a while, coming
to the rescue.
Coming to the rescue. It's just such a plot beat that I've seen.
And
so
you
many
didn't
times
buy that
before.
It's a super small community. That something
well,
like this.
This is the other thing. Sorry, I talked over you. Sorry. Well, this is the other thing is. They keep having this. It's a clash of cultures. It's a clash of cultures. But she belongs to a church which is in Norway and has its own beliefs in Norway. And Norway, it's a progressive country, but there are Christians there. It's not like 100% atheist.
Yeah, the Scandinavian countries are the ones almost with the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
Particularly compared to Sweden.
And the
secular.
They mention the Sami, and they mention, but it's not massively diverse, by no means, a melting pot, but neither is it completely uniform. And I just felt there was a sense of everything was really in the favor of the family and making you feel that the family were really hard done by, and how could that... And I mean, you shouldn't judge a film necessarily by the audience, but there was some quite loud yucking from people as it's political correctness gone mad, or look at the wokerati, and it just felt really banal, and it didn't in any way convince me. I just felt I was being manipulated into feeling that it's always this sense of sort of victimization on the part of people who until now have had very much the upper hand and still have the upper hand, but want to feel like they're being victimized, and I didn't buy it at all.
But it's not, I mean, since it is based on true cases, does that change it for you?
A little bit.
Or is it the storytelling in general that didn't work?
A little bit. There is an element that you do worry about that. But there have been high-profile cases where social services in Britain and France and other places have taken children, have not kept children in care, which have been far more devastating in the sense that the children have lost their lives. And so, no, obviously I don't want to see families split up for no reason whatsoever. And the idea that, this was another line of dialogue that was repeated constantly of a little smack on the butt, a little smack on the butt. And I was kept thinking, oh my God, that's such a sort of like Scandinavian way of speaking English, because it's like, it's not a British, you wouldn't say a little smack on the butt.
Right, but I think that has to do with the fact that I think that is completely outlawed. I mean, it's illegal to smack on the butt, slap a child and while I think, particularly in the rest of Europe, one wouldn't see that as cause to take your children away from you. And I think that's where the sort of big gap between the
Sure, but presumably in Scandinavia there's been a debate, and there's enough consensus that's.
Since the 70s, it's been like that. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So, I don't see a problem with having to accept that if you go to another country, and I thought the father that Sebastian Stan plays is this very quiet, sort of enigmatic person, and you never quite, there are certain moments where he seemed, you feel,
he slams down hand.
Or
feels inner rage, kind of.
There's the very first shot that is introduced to the family. Something has happened, and you're never sure what. But something has happened, and it's obviously that there's a bit of discipline has gone down. And I felt, well, that's how are we getting all the information about the Norwegians and their self-harming daughter, and we're not getting any of the information about what the father does. That he might well be abusive. He might well be wrong, but we don't get any of that information. We get some indications that, like, he's keeping an eye on his daughter in terms of her friendship.
But isn't that the point, that you're supposed to be in the gray area as a viewer to?
Well, if that was the point, then I think it's mishandled, because I think you're not in a gray area, because you by the end of the film you're hoping they get away, and you're understand. Yeah, let's go back to the country where I can beat my child as much as I wish. Well, actually, no. Sorry, that's a caricature. Well, that's I'm criticizing them for caricaturing Norway. I don't want to caricature Romanian. Also, I was kind of thinking, if I was watching this as a Romanian, I'd be also thinking, come on, we don't beat our children as our national identity.
No, but that's what I mean. I think that's where the huge gap is. You have one side who's like a little, basically the scene where we're supposed to think that these bruises may have happened, or at least the Norwegian authorities think that it's happened, is when the mother's actually pushing the older children away, because they're almost scalding the little baby when they run into the kitchen, and which you would, right? You would move a child from, and I think you're supposed to think, is this unfair? Or is it not unfair? And I think the reason he's not giving you all that information, because it's basically a gray area morally of thinking what is correct to do, how do you rear your children, what is the limit. Well, I think many other countries would say a little, as you say, smack on the butt is not, child abuse. While I think that the view on Norway is that it's so rigid, the bureaucracy, the laws, the socials, that they will basically call social services because a small 7-year-old says something about another child, saying she's a lesbian. It's a 7-year-old, but it's so, they're told to call as soon as something is not. They listen to the children before anything else, and it becomes very rigid in that direction.
Right.
And I think you're supposed to be in the gap in between two very extreme directions.
Yeah, this is recognised by the film in the sense that it talks about the Americans become big supporters of the family, and I just feel that Norway is being attacked as a kind of proxy for any progressive ideals. You want to live in Norway where they take your children away for the least motivation.
But haven't the Scandinavian big countries been paradise for a long time? And it's interesting to see another point of view. in the zeitgeist, I mean.
Yeah, I mean we're seeing lots of points of view, I think, from Norway and from their own filmmakers, and yeah, it's interesting to see an outsider on what they think. I was just left. I just thought from a political point of view, I was very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
From a filmmaker's point of view, I felt the film was substandard compared to Mungiu's other work.
Yeah.
I am not a big fan, to tell you the truth. I do find his films emotionally manipulative, and they do tend to. I mean, they're definitely Beyond the Hills I thought was good, and the death of.
Yeah, 4 weeks was it?
Yeah. That one I didn't like
didn't
so
like
much.
that. I like that.
Because I just felt there was something miserablest about it, and something very. Maybe it's me.
It's not you. I mean, this was not my favorite of the Countier Fjord. It wasn't. But
Right.
I think there's been quite a bit of mediocre threes in the competition. That this one came out wanting to discuss it, wanting to hear how people are discussing it, and that was good.
The guy next to me who watched it came out saying this was amazing, and that's in a way, sometimes someone nudges you further in the direction you were going anyway, because you was like, it's not amazing. I can't.
Which is exactly
bear
Christian
to see
Mungiu's
something.
point. We're moving away from each other.
Yeah, true. But I don't know. This is a wider argument, but it's almost like someone who's been beating you over the head for 5 weeks suddenly says, okay, let's just talk. Let's talk it out.
Okay.
And it's like,
Yeah,
well,
that's
I
the
want to
point.
beat you over the head for a bit. Then we'll talk it out, I think in times of fascism, sort of, not being bipartisan is no longer a policy. It's more important to get everybody on the right side. That's my totalitarianly progressive
So what
point
would
of
the
view.
right side here be? I think that's
I think the right side would be protecting the children. Certainly speeding up the process and making it more efficient.
yeah. I
and
think
make it
because
more-
that to me is
Not, I mean, you could write rules to stop them to allow visitation rights and to.
Oh, I agree with that completely. But I think what we're looking here is this rigid bureaucracy and the kind of like not being able to. At a certain point, it seemed very heartless. We're just ripping the baby away from the house in a way that was.
I'm just not 100% sure. I mean, I'd like to see the research in a way, and as you say, he's an ex-journalist, so he knows his stuff. But I also know journalists who use research to make their argument rather than, allowing the argument to come from the research. So. I'd like to have a look further into that myself, which I guess is a positive from the film.
We look forward to your next
my next podcast series,
where you have
in
gone
Norway.
into this whole research.
It's interesting. I mean, cinema is really powerful. I'm working on a project at the moment. I've started putting it on Substack called Lies Movies Tell, because movies are just so powerful at convincing us these are the baddies, these are the goodies, and I think in this film I didn't see it as being, if only we could talk to each other. I think these are the guys in the white hats, these are the guys in black hats. I thought that was very clear.
Yeah.
These are short-haired lesbians who we don't want anything to do with, and these are the sort of the nice family.
It was very, and I think that what didn't quite work for me was the kind of obvious, the children are the ones who find each other and they're carefree and they have no, evil thoughts about each other, and they just come completely like a blank slate until the friendship and love with each other, and that I felt a tad obvious.
And there was an older character who decided to do something very dramatic and went missing, but he waited until they found him before doing the dramatic thing, and it's like, again, that to me was a bit cack-handed, a bit clumsy. Anyway, let's talk about some films that you've seen that I haven't seen. So Kid Club, this is a film that I really regret missing because it was on early in the festival and everybody is raving about it.
This is I'd say in terms of sales, this is the big talk of the festival. I hadn't really heard of it. There wasn't much talk of it before. This is from the kind of YouTube comedian Jordan Firstman. Lots of people don't really like him. It's just, what is this movie? But it turns out that it's gone gangbusters. It's the one movie that's sold that had this bidding war already this week, $17 million to A24, and that's the movie that everyone's talking about. And it's a very lovely, entertaining. You cry a little, you laugh a lot. It's about a club promoter, Jordan Firstman. It's in New York. He's very, he's into drugs and good time and party and an LGBTQ community all around him. And then it becomes like a Kramer versus Kramer story, where suddenly his 10-year-old child appears. I won't say the circumstances, and he has to take care of this child, and how it changes him and how it changes, his thoughts on it. And it's sweet and it's incredibly funny. There's side characters, a neighbor and others in this, and basically they sort of take care of this child, and then, as these movies do, it has a dip, which is very emotional, and people are just laughing and crying and having a good time. It's not a pretentious, deep Cannes movie as the ones we've discussed on my show, and it's something else. But I honestly think people really needed it, and I think people have. What I've heard when I've had people on my show, people don't really like Jordan Firstman. There's been a lot of. He's not someone who sort of came up during the pandemic as a comedian, and all of a sudden he comes and he makes this movie, a directorial debut. It's really assured, it's great music, and it's very emotional and fun.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I hope I can sort of find a link or something.
You're going to see this at every single festival
this
entire year.
Right.
Don't you worry.
I'll pick it up at Carlo Vivari.
And I think it's an absolute joy for him. I could see, just following along on Instagram, and he's been at every party. Of course, this is a huge deal for him. Yeah. I think he'll be wherever you're going.
Okay, super. I'm looking forward to that.
And I guess A24 will release it. I don't know what their schedule is, but or when that would be, maybe in the fall. But
yeah. I know it's going to be released in the UK as well as the US. And this looks like a great title coming out of Cannes. And anyway, if I don't see it, it's kind of nice to have films to look forward to rather than sort of clicking them off the list because you've already seen them.
It's impossible to, both of you and I will have left here and missed titles because one has to make a decision.
Absolutely.
There's no way to be able to see everything in work, and all of a sudden you're like FOMO because John comes to me and says, this is the best movie. I'm like, I won't be able to see that.
Yeah.
And that's the one I missed.
Yeah, and ditto. So to talk, I'll give you some FOMO now. A Moldova that I saw yesterday, which is called Bitter Christmas in English. Autofiction is the French title, which in some ways is
more appropriate. Huh?
Well, it's about a screenwriter who's making a film, and he's using his own life as a inspiration, and also the lives of the people around him who begin to resent it, and especially an agent that he's had for 20 years. He starts to use some very personal information he has about her in his script, and it's kind of exactly what you would want from this sort of late period of Moldova. It looks beautiful, the colors are wonderful, the music's fantastic, it's lush. That's that's the atmosphere, and it's witty. And the story just, it never slackens in terms of its pace. But again, it's kind of the theme of the festival is we've all seen much better Almodovar movies.
Yeah, it's interesting because particularly these group of directors who have won here, he hasn't won here before, but who have been here many times before, who've done the ones who have won the Palm, and they kind of coming with mid movies compared to others. Yeah.
And I mean, there's even a joke in this film where somebody says to him, "Oh, again with the dead mother." You've done that one already, and so it's a real. It's even acknowledged within the film, and that makes you feel
But you liked it. I mean,
Oh, I did like it.
yeah.
I had a great time with it. I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with a 3-star movie. It's a 3-star movie at Cannes that is a little bit. Well, there's nothing wrong with a 3-star movie if it's just the 1 or 2. But when you start going down the lineup, and they're kind of all 3-star movies.
This was an odd choice for Cannes because this is already released in Spain before Cannes, and already got sort of, nice, respectable reviews, but nothing out of this world considering
and it's in competition, right?
It's in competition.
That's very odd because I thought it would be like
I didn't even think that it was allowed that it would be released in that sense out there, but maybe.
Well, there is a difference between a world premiere and international premiere, but I just assumed it was always completely and utterly a world premiere. That is
exactly
the first time it's been seen ever anywhere,
yes,
rather than the first time it's been seen outside of its own country. I thought that definition was being used for things like, out of competition.
Yeah,
titles.
or Director's Fortnight or something like that. That would have been.
Yes, Sundance titles will turn up because they've only been shown in Sundance.
Yeah. So it's a bit odd. I'm not quite sure why this happened, but I mean, it's always nice to include an Almodovar film. So
it's like when Thierry Fremont, they decided women were allowed to use flat shoes on the red carpet, and he said, "There's never been a rule about this."
Thank you, Thierry.
What are you looking forward to as the festival rolls to a close?
I only have a day left. I have the 2 films I have left before I leave are the Ira Sachs film, which I'm very much looking forward to. It's not a musical, I've learned. I haven't seen it, but it's a sort of New York AIDS, the theater group putting together a play with Rami Malek at its center. Rami Malek is not a favorite of mine, so I'm a bit wary, but I've heard people say that he's actually really great in that. And I heard Ira Sachs say that he had never seen Bohemian Rhapsody when he cast him. So
that's probably
for the better. No?
Yeah, that's probably why he got the job.
And then I'm going to see the last thing before I leave is the another one, because there's 3 Spanish films. It's a big year for Spain, big year for Japan. I'm going to see Los Javis, the 2 Javiers, their film Bola Negra, which is tomorrow, and that's apparently also some sort of musical or starring Penelope Cruz and Glenn Close.
Oh,
yeah,
wow!
3 different decades. Yeah.
That's well.
Will you join me?
Colour me intrigued. Yeah, absolutely. No, I've already got a ticket for that, so definitely coming. I'm looking forward to. There's another Quentin Dupieux film that is closing the Cannes.
You liked Fulfill.
I loved Fulfill, and in fact, I was only on the podcast yesterday talking about it when it live and in real time. I realised that Fulfill was a pun on fulfill.
Well,
there you go. Okay, well, thank you, Christina, for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. And you can follow Christina's work on Pop Culture Confidential, wherever you get good podcasts. She has some terrible guests like me, but other than myself,
just a few days ago,
it's a
very good episode.
But other than myself, it's a brilliant podcast, and I encourage you all to like, subscribe, as you will do with this podcast, I'm sure. Thank you so much for listening. We're out.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.